Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you're at. Thank you for joining me this lovely part of whatever day it is. I am sitting in Atlanta, so it is the morning. My name is Brigitte Armon. I am with Cox Enterprises. We are a privately held conglomerate of telecommunications and automotive businesses. I sit in our parent company and so have a purview into both industries. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how data and analytics contribute to HR and applications with people analytics to understanding HR priorities. If you guys want to drop questions in the chat as I'm talking, I'm trying to keep an eye on it, but I'll also try and save a couple of minutes at the end. So please feel free to make this more interactive, as well as to collect your thoughts and chime in at the end as well. So what are we going to talk about with current priorities? What is that code for today? I don't think it'll come as a surprise to many people that a lot of this is around COVID-19 and the fluctuating job markets and responses to the pandemic. So right now, HR considers itself to be in a war for talent. This is something that has happened before, to the extent where some folks are saying that this war for talent isn't particularly new, but just slightly worse than some that we've had before, that they tend to follow the markets and the cycles in the markets. So how can people analytics support HR in this method? What can we do with data analytics? Well, first, we need to understand a couple of factors about the war on talent. What's the climate that we are responding to? So it's a combination of factors where there's the unusual turnover behavior. We really are seeing spikes in turnover. The job openings and labor turnover survey that the United States government puts out monthly has seen something like a 40% increase. If you look at June 2020 and or 2019 rather, and June 2021, the preliminary numbers are up for quits. They are up for openings. Industry research. So we've got in HR lots of organizations that are dedicated to polling either HR professionals, executives, or candidates, and they're all turning up the same insights that turnover is hot. And we are really seeing this phenomenon of changing needs, where something like 73% of the employees surveyed in Microsoft's Work Trends Index indicated that they would want flexible remote to be continued to be part of their experience. We're seeing some unprecedented demands on our employees right now. Their well-being is a huge issue. So with the stress from the pandemic, there's the demands that we're all playing, where we have multiple hats, the chef, the educator, and the employee, where we are having trouble disconnecting from work because we don't have any more of those physical boundaries. When people analytics goes to inform HR, it's often understanding what engagement is, and other types of climate measures can be really helpful to know for people analytics professionals. So engagement you can think of as a resource, and all resources are finite. Whether it's mental, physical, or emotional, employees invest in their corporate relationship, but if they are running out of resources because they cannot replenish after hours or on the weekend, then you really are going to start to see this burnout. And we're beginning to see what that impact could be with people who are leaving the labor market before maybe they would have normally retired. They're looking for different types of work. Gartner just put out a survey looking at candidates and noted that they're starting to see a breakdown in the reasons that people are leaving. It's not really an element of dissatisfaction, but rather an understanding that now they're finally, the market's picking back up and there are opportunities for better compensation. But also, people didn't experience any change over the past year because of the instability rather, and wanting to move now that they that they feel that it's a little bit more stable. Another element that's important to think about in the current HR climate is development and the types of things that companies sort of tighten their belts around. Headcount freezes, not going ahead with some planned expansions, not hiring backfills, some cutting some development budgets. Employees just may not be able to see that in the internal opportunities as well anymore. So these are the landscape that people analytics can contribute to. So let's think about now tactics that could allow people analytics to give HR some guide rails to help them understand how to prioritize their attention. In response to this climate, what are people gonna do? Well, they can't boil an ocean. They've got to really be surgical in their interventions if they're going to be as effective as possible. So one of the things you can use people analytics to understand is where to prioritize. I saw that whole list of those workshops that were a part of yesterday's content, and they were really advanced stuff, all the AI and machine learning. But people analytics can start to be really effective just by creating metrics and monitoring trends. For instance, helping the business to find regrettable attrition. So who's leaving voluntarily, and cleaning up that data so you can get a sense of where you have issues, and tracking that over time so you can see whether it's getting better or worse will let you answer very important questions. Where do I have a problem? Is my intervention helping? With talent acquisition, part of understanding this war on talent is twofold. Do I have fewer candidates that are applying to my roles? And do I have more people quitting, so I have to hire more and more and more to close that loop? So creating a metric that's applications to openings and tracking that over time will give you a sense of your talent pool and allow you, again, if you add some filters on manager level, on department, to really prioritize where you have the problem rather than trying to do a peanut butter spread of like increasing your sourcing efforts across the board, or just assuming you have a problem because nationwide there is this phenomena. Some more advanced analytics are possible when it comes to understanding where your experience gaps are starting to build up. So beyond just metrics, one of the things that's very hot in people analytics right now is utilizing communications metadata and working through organizational network analyses. So communications metadata in the time of remote work has become a treasure trove. Microsoft put out some data on their population that says they've just skyrocketing increased utilization in Teams and in meetings. And in the beginning, that was just the switch to virtual. Your water cooler conversations, your hallway run-ins have disappeared, and they become emails and meetings and IMs. We've been remote. If you're in an environment where people had the luxury of staying remote, in this environment since March 2020, so you can really track how much time people are spending sending emails, when they're sending emails, and get a handle on this idea of burnout and disconnection. So are your people on all day, even the weekends, all the time? In my organization, culturally, we took lunch. It was a thing. We have a really nice campus and a great cafeteria. And so people they went downstairs and they logged off. The neuroscience on breaks is very solid. It's good. It's a wonderful opportunity to replenish your resources and come back and actually get stuff done in the afternoon rather than spending longer hours spinning your wheel, increasing your frustration. So if you were to look at our data, you might see that patterns have really shifted over time. The lunch hour sacredness has disappeared. So being able to look at those work patterns and understand what is going on through the timing of emails and meetings. This can be really insightful for return to work plans and the future of work, to see what schedules your employees are typically utilizing. You can do some clustering analysis with this data to understand if you've got a couple of different working patterns and therefore need to offer different types of flexible working schedules and working arrangements. The other thing you can do is you can look at who's talking to who. When it comes to network size and patterns of communication, this can help you identify network silos. Are you still getting the kinds of departmental collaboration that you need to have a successful business? And also, are you running the risk of having less innovation because people aren't collaborating together anymore? Do you really have a breakdown of the networks that spark ideas? Another important element about networks and who's talking to whom that you can consider is to take on, put on your diversity hat and understand whether your leaders of color have the right networks to be moving up the ranks. Do they have the same access to senior leaders that your white leaders have? Do your leaders who are supposed to be leading the inclusion charge, does their network reflect the overall representation of your business? So there's a lot of stuff you can do to help set HR priorities using this communications metadata. But of course, there's also listening, which is a big thing to think about as we start talking about employee experience, as we talk about how strange some of the zeitgeist is for right now. Understanding what our employees are feeling is a huge way that people analytics can help direct HR prioritization. And what I will say here is that if you just do a survey, you end up with feedback. If you do analytics, you get insight. It's really not just asking the questions, but also being able to streamline that data so that you can actually have those targeted interventions that respond to what employees are saying as a whole. I find that if you've got an HR department that's a little less used to working with data, the power of the antecedents can take precedent. So if someone is particularly eloquent, they may direct HR attention, especially if they have the ear of a senior leader. They may redirect HR attention and interventions to problems that don't really speak to the bulk of the employee experience. Whereas you can use the data, if you've got representative data, you can understand what's really the most pressing for employees. The two facets you can check in on is how you continue to maintain an attractive employee value proposition. So as work changes, do your people really want to be flexible, or do you have that connected culture that really wants to be face-to-face? Is there a disconnect between what their leadership preferences for and what the employee base wants? Finding those disconnects requires some surveys and some slicing of the data so that you can see how the different segments of your population really prioritize. Here I'll reference what I wrote on the slide. Says beyond the annual physical. Historically, employee listening has been pretty like annual bulky surveys, 60+ questions on all of the dimensions of culture. When I'm talking about keeping an eye on your employee value proposition, it may be helpful to understand what it is that you originally offered employees and then what they want now, which may require a longer survey, but for understanding our current climate, you're probably going to want to think about how you can pulse and keep track of employee sentiment as it changes in response to the vicissitudes of the pandemic and ongoing stress and return to school with kids and how people are feeling. in a more agile way. So sticking to stuff that's topical and relevant. I put in here importance and satisfaction. It can be incredibly powerful to understand not just how people are feeling about a specific thing, but also how they value it. So it's everybody is super satisfied with benefits, and it's very important. It's something to like keep an eye on just to make sure that satisfaction maintains. If people are not super satisfied with the brand recognition, but no one thinks that brand recognition is really a core part of what your company offers, then you can let it go and really have a more targeted intervention to what employees are really looking for. So I think that those were the high-level types of analyses that we've been keeping an eye on to try and help our HR department steer itself through these waters. Does anybody want to ask any questions? I left a couple of minutes. If not, I can talk about maybe one or two additional analyses. Or wrap up early in case people need bio breaks and coffee. Because the digital distraction and the burden of being in an online environment where you're spending too much time in front of Zoom is real. So if y'all just need a minute, that would be fair too. Yeah, tools and techniques. So we're a Tableau shop. And I'm an R user. So Tableau for data visualization is amazing. You can really make very powerful, simple graphs, and you can do a lot of useful visualization, and a lot of useful data exploration. And then R is great for stats. So if you want to do some time series forecasting to understand demand, and the patterns in your open requisitions, I would really recommend R. Can also do a lot of modeling. So if you need to understand attrition and you want to do an attrition model. As far as BI tools, a lot of my data comes to me from our very cleaned up data warehouse. So I use Alteryx if I have to do any of my own data prep, but it depends on the problem. The other thing I've had some good luck with, if you're getting started in this, is KNIME. It starts with a K. It is also open source, and it's a great tool if you're looking to get started but don't have as much investment. For R, there's a ggplot. It's one of the best packages for visualization if your company is not excited by Tableau's licensing structure. So I mentioned time series for forecasting. The other thing that can be really useful, and it looks great in Tableau, is survival curves. So you can understand attrition and time for mobility using those. So if you do want to mess around with that, there's some great resources on how to conduct those as well. Right, I see that I am about up on time. So I want to thank everybody for their attention this morning or this afternoon, and wish everybody a pleasant rest of their Fridays and conference. And thank you so much again